bonus points to you, by the way, Mr. Solomon, for
teacher's
for
pet. Teacher's pet.
Yeah, I like that kind of initiative, and I wish some of our other students in class would show that kind of go-getiveness. Hey everybody, welcome back to Office Hours. I'm your host, Michael Wolf. Today we're going to do a recap on the greatest sporting event of the year, the Walker Cup. We're going to spend about the next 3 hours recapping all the matches, the Alabama boys' heroic performances. What a way to end the golf year. Walker Cup, best tournament of the year. Chris Solomon, welcome to Office Hours. Your first trip here to, exciting morning.
I think I'm in the wrong class. I don't think I signed up for this course.
No? Is there something else going on in golf before the end of the year? I thought Walker Cup was kind of the traditional one. Oh, the Ryder Cup. I forgot about that.
I got my Whistling Straits hoodie on today. I pulled it out. I haven't worn it in 2 years, kind of like Keegan's suitcase. I refuse to wear it until the U.S. wins on European soil. So I'm excited to talk about my favorite event. I understand you love this event as well, and I'm excited to find some common ground here.
Well, I don't know if love would be the right word. Love, hate, despise, some combination of that. Speaking of this great Ryder Cup merch, I'm wearing the Bet shirt from Holderness and Bourne, official sponsors of Office Hours. Can't thank those guys enough for the support. This is just black. It's the black Bet shirt. It makes me look like I work out more than I do. It's a good fit. You can play golf in it. Holderness and Bourne, as always, the good stuff from those guys, and official retailers of the Ryder Cup. Among the many things I hate about the Ryder Cup, Soly, is the logo. They've only updated it like twice in 50 years, but I like this nice clean new look from Holderness and Bourne with just a little trophy there.
Way to save it there. I was like, hey man, we're trying to sell some of these things. Like, I don't want to say I hate the logo on them. Come on.
Yeah, no, this one looks good. Additional plug, the highest compliment I can give to him. I packed the Sullivan pullover when I was headed to the Walker Cup in St. Andrews last week. My wife took it. I'll never see that one again. She liked the Sullivan, so that's now part of her wardrobe. So Holderness and Bourne, catering to everybody.
It's great to sit down with I went to Walker Cup guy. Ask me about it. This is going to be a lot of fun, Wolfie.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Ryder Cup. It is the big one, the one that's left. Love it or hate it, you can't ignore it, that's for sure. I understand, Mr. Solomon, that you are pro Ryder Cup and that you're pro American Ryder Cup.
Yeah, going all the way back to, I think 1999 is probably when I first got really invested in it. I don't have to tell you what happened then. The Europeans certainly have not forgotten what happened then. European media has definitely not forgotten about what happened at Brookline. But I was a big team sports guy, but also a big golfer as a kid. And like just seeing an event unfold that was unlike any golf event we'd seen at that time. Of course, this is Tiger Mania, as well as just those god-awful shirts at Brookline, and just a spirit and I don't know, watching those dudes run around on, like, I fancied myself as one of those guys on the basketball court, probably looked as awkward as those guys did celebrating in the Dockers, but like it just was a merging of two great things for me. I love golf and I love team sports, and that like kicked off, it's hard to, in golf, it's hard to really root against someone really hard. Like, there's just not those natural rivalries. To have something very cut and dry as to like, I'm rooting for you and I'm rooting against you is something that's missing, except for every 2 years in golf. And it's one of the many reasons why I love this event.
Well, my first Ryder Cup was in your neck of the woods. So I went in '87, Muirfield Village. I was a 16-year-old living in Cincinnati. To show folks how much this game has changed, I was a caddy in Cincinnati. The PGA of America used to send tickets to each club professional. I think in the United States, they would like mail the tickets. The tickets sat on the counter of the pro shop for probably a month until the night before the event. We were locking up, and one of the assistant pros said, hey, these tickets are for tomorrow. Do you want to go? Nobody else is going to use them. And I talked a friend, I didn't have my driver's license yet, into driving up to Muirfield Village to watch the Euros win on American soil with Seve Ballesteros and Jose Maria Olazabal and kind of all the guys I loved at the time. That was 1987. Yeah.
That means you're part of the reason to blame, because Jack Nicklaus had to go around passing out flags for the crowd that wasn't cheering enough. I've been looking for somebody to blame for that one for as long as I've been in existence. I finally got someone.
I would blame the Ohio State band. I think when in doubt, you blame Ohio State. I do remember the band walking up the 18th fairway thing, and that's a little bit weird. I also remember, like, there were no grandstands. There were no, they had crowd control and stuff, but it really is amazing how far this thing has come, and in one man's view, spiraled out of control. But let's start, Chris, with the beginning. Let's go back to the beginning. So who was Samuel Ryder? What the heck was the Ryder Cup? So Samuel Ryder, he was a seed packet merchant. And what the hell was that? That meant that he was one of the first guys that figured out little packages of seeds to grow vegetables. It didn't really have anything to do with golf course like grass. It had to do with pumpkin seeds or tomato seeds or whatever. For 1 penny, he figured out he could make money by mailing you a packet of seeds for 1 penny. He lived close to a railroad line where he could send the seeds like the next day. But his big breakthrough was he figured out that most men of the time and gardeners that were interested in having backyard gardens, they were all working 6 days a week. So he was the first one that figured out the timing where if you ordered your seeds, I believe on Saturday morning, he could make sure you got it by the time you were off work and had free time on Sunday to work in your backyard garden. And he made a lot of money, and he was big into golf. He was born in 1858, lived all the way to 1936. He supported all kinds of different golf tournaments. He was a big golf tournament guy.
Sounds a bit like Workday, if I'm being honest.
There you go. First Ryder Cup, unofficially not recognized, but the first one, 1926, kind of a test run at Wentworth. First officially recognized one, 1927, in Massachusetts. Worcester Country Club. The first 5 matches are split. They go back and forth, and the home team wins each of the first 5 matches. That kind of takes us up until World War II.
Was the U.S. putting all the pins in the middle of the green back then as well? And was the Europeans growing up the rough?
Not sure. I wasn't there, Soly.
You can assume. Let's just assume that.
I'd assume so. Sure. In the ones that we won anyway. Northern Ireland players are added in 1947. Republic of Ireland players are added in 53, but they don't actually change the name to the GB&I squad until 1973. So it got pretty lopsided pretty quickly. We go 18-3-1 in the first 22 times the Ryder Cup is held. We beat them really because of depth, Soly. I think most people would assume, it was Jack Nicklaus, it was Arnold Palmer, it was Ben Hogan, people like that were the reason for all the beatdowns. But really, it was just because of the depth of the squad. If you look at Nicklaus, I think was 4-4-2 lifetime in singles. Tom Watson was a 500 player, but as you start to get down to the 4th, 5th, 6th guys like Billy Casper, they just kind of ate their opponents alive a little bit farther down the batting order. So that's kind of where it stood.
From what I remember, it was quite. There were many times where it would appear that this event could have gone away, right? With so much dominance in over the course of the years, it is a wonder that it lasted to present day. Yeah,
I think it kind of surprising that the Americans kept supporting it, to be honestly, that they kept going over there. And there were a number of changes to the format. There were multiple instances. Rookies on the American club team, you couldn't start earning points and being considered until you'd been on tour for the PGA Tour back then for 2 years. There was an instance where a guy didn't send in his PGA of America dues, and so they wouldn't give him his points until he had paid his dues. There were 36-hole matches. There were, it kind of bobbed around. It was very much an English event. When we think of, like the Walker Cup, we think of RNA, USGA, but on the British side, this was really England. Most of the matches were held in England. Only 2 matches ever have been held in Scotland. I think 1 has ever been held in Ireland.
I'm not trying to show up the professor here, but I'd be remiss if we didn't give a shout out and a mention to our guy, Robert Hudson. I learned about his story when we went to Portland Golf Club. The Ryder Cup sat out, obviously, during World War II. It was not played. I think it was like the U.S. had won a lot of however many had been played to date, and it looked like it could have gone away, but he financed the entire GB&I or GB team, I guess, at that point to come over. He met them, I think, in New York or wherever they got to the U.S. and rode a 30-hour train journey with them all the way to Portland, Oregon to, like, keep the Ryder Cup alive and stuff like that, that I'm like, all right, Wolfie, you better make a good case here on the back end as to why you don't like this event, because there's some really cool stuff that's happened in this one over the course of many decades.
Yeah, there has been. Bonus points to you, by the way, Mr. Solomon, for
teacher's pet. Teacher's pet.
Yeah, I like that kind of initiative, and I wish some of our other students in class would show that kind of go-getiveness. So, yeah, good. I mean, I think it was a great event. They had it at good places. I mean, it was, Birkdale, Lytham. The one that was held in Scotland early on was at Muirfield, so they were pretty good courses. The commercialization seems to have happened. Obviously, 1979. I mean, Seve Ballesteros for people that maybe were my generation, not your generation, Chris. he changed everything. I mean, it wasn't just his style of play and stuff, but his magnetism, the fact that he wanted Augusta. It was Seve, but it was also maybe the confidence that he gave everybody else, and then Faldo and Olazabal and Montgomery and everybody else. But really, Ballesteros, he changed everything. So by 1979, almost single-handedly, he had forced the Americans and the British to kind of open this thing up and concede that, hey, it was kind of time to figure out what to do with the Ryder Cup. And, they decided to kind of lean into it. I don't maybe necessarily agree with how far they've leaned into it or where it's gone, but no question for the economics of it, for the attention of it, for the size of the pie that it's garnered in golf since then. 1979 was definitely the turning point. It was also the turning point competition-wise, competitiveness-wise. Since 1979, the U.S. has gone 9-11-1. So pre-Euros coming in, they were 18-3-1. Post-Euros, they were 9-11-1. So if there was a golden age for the Ryder Cup where the balance, I think, was about right, I think that was probably it. And you had, Euros who were the better players and American arrogance that just wouldn't concede that the Euros were the better players. And in the best that sports can be, they settled it on the field, right? That doesn't often happen, but for those,
it was a totally different time too. Those guys didn't play; they played the majors together, but they didn't, cross-pollinate on the tours like they do currently. The Europeans didn't live in Florida like they currently do, and it was a measure of the two tours were very comparable at the time, and it was a measure of skill and talent of that tour, and it just had a totally different meaning and different fight to it than it currently does today.
Yeah, and I think almost like boxers, the different playing styles, just the fact of where the Euros grew up playing on the kind of courses and the weather they grew up in versus by the 1970s, 80s, you were starting to get into the, Lanny Watkins and Tom Kites and Ben Crenshaws and University of Texas and Houston and all that kind of stuff, and programs where everybody was kind of taught to swing the same way, and it was starting to kind of homogenize in the U.S. side, and on the Euro side, it was still, you still had wild cards that were coming out of, whether it was Ian Woosnam from Wales or wherever. And yeah, I fell in love with it back then because of the difference in the players. I got tired of it pretty quickly because of just too much everything. I mean, the ticket sales, the crowd sizes, it's a tough event to go to. I've been to 7 of them, but they're tough to watch. Obviously, there's only 4 matches going on at a time. You put 30 or 40,000 people on a golf course. Golf is kind of hard to follow anyway on the ground level.
My number one advice for people that are going to their Ryder Cups is find a spot, find a hole, back 9 with a Jumbotron. Find a spot with a screen, hang out. You're at the Ryder Cup. You can watch it with a group of people that are waiting. You might be waiting a couple hours for the group to come through, but you're still watching it with people. You're at the event. You can hear the roars on the other side of the course, and you get to watch it up on the screen. But listen, I agree. I don't have an alternative for you. You got to have the big crowds. That's what makes it fun. And I don't, you're not expanding the teams and expanding the matches. It's just sometimes there's 8 balls in play with foursomes, and there's a lot of people there to watch it. And it does add to the intensity of it, but it's not easy spectating in person. I can definitely agree with that.
The other thing is the commercialization, right? And that's it. In my opinion, it wasn't talked about enough this year as part of the, not necessarily LIV, but the PGA Tour. But there is, clearly there's a fundamental issue in golf that the 5 or 6 largest tournaments aren't controlled by the PGA Tour, aren't controlled by the players. I mean, my understanding is the Ryder Cup brings in 2x what any other golf tournament in the world brings in. It brings in maybe 4x what a PGA Championship brings in, and for the players not to receive any of that is it's going to create, even if they're not complaining so much, it's going to create a structural imbalance. It's going to show with cracks in other places, and I can't help wonder on some level if the $300 million in revenue coming in from the Ryder Cup, if the players were getting $150 million of that, would they? Some guys are always going to want more, but it seems like that could have plugged a lot of holes.
I know this was an issue maybe at Brookline. I think leading up into Brookline, this was an issue. And I correct me if I'm wrong. They've reached a settlement of some kind, or at one point, I don't know what the dollar amount is now, but each player receives a hundreds of thousands of dollars donation to a charity of their choice, their own charity or foundation that they would want the allocation to go to. And it seems to have quelled any of the of that conversation, right? Because I think players also learned pretty quickly this was a battle you were not going to win for an event that people love. Like, hey, like you get paid in the other weeks of the year. And I don't know, I feels like this group of guys has a genuine love for this event, and knows there's other financial interests that come from being a part of these teams in your future endorsement deals and things like that, to say like, hey, I'll play for no money this week, and I seem fine with it, which is kind of refreshing with the current state of the golf world, man. It's been a tough slog over the last couple of years, fighting and quibbling over dollars and cents, and I'm good to put that aside for a week.
I'm a little more skeptical on that. It feels to me a little bit more, Goldman Sachs not paying their summer interns. That's got a little bit more of this feel to it I know there's the donation. It's $200,000 per player. They shower the free plane tickets and hotel rooms and stuff like that on everybody remotely connected with this event. But I still it's so much of everything. The cost of the beers, the ticket packages, everything about this is like, how do we squeeze every last dollar out of it? You don't try to get blood out of every rock. And in this particular case, it feels like they're doing that. And it's on the backs of some guys that, if they even consider raising a question about what's going on, well, now you're a terrible person and you're unpatriotic and all that stuff. And it just seems, a little crazy. And the players, I feel like I've been proven right a little bit. I mean, the other thing is, like, the players don't care about this tournament as much as people think they did. Because if they did, their actions would support it. They pay lip service to it. And I've made this analogy before, but it reminds me of my Latin class my freshman year. I didn't really care about Latin class for 51 weeks of the year. But when it got time for the final exam and I was going in with a 67, I cared a lot for like 48 hours about freshman Latin at St. X High School. So you just, some of the stalwarts on the European team who really the major successes of their career, Poulter, Westwood, they clearly put a price tag on what their legacy was worth, and they sold it out. Money was more important to them. If the players cared, they wouldn't have this thing, a week after the season ends. Half these guys are exhausted. The guys that are coming off of, great seasons are looking to rest. The guys that are coming off bad seasons are, changing caddies, they're changing equipment. There's been numerous examples of players making major changes, whether it's their swing coach or their equipment, days before the Ryder Cup matches tee off. I get that when they lose on Sunday in singles like Rory did, they're extremely upset, and the emotions and the crowd and all that. They clearly care at that moment. But if this was really the most important thing, it would be played in January or February when everybody was fresh. If this was the most important thing, the U.S. would be going, multiple practice trips over there instead of a couple of guys maybe showing up for a day, maybe not, depending on the weather. And I don't blame them either, by the way. I mean, I wouldn't, this has got nothing to do with history. Nobody remembers Jack Nicklaus's record. Nobody knows that Paul Azinger was a terrible Ryder Cup player and that Tom Kite was a fantastic Ryder Cup player. Nobody remembers that Justin Leonard was 0-1-3 at Brookline, right? The hero of Brookline. He throws on that stupid shirt every 4 years for the telecast or on Golf Channel or whatever. He didn't win any of his 4 matches at Brookline. But you got Tom Kite, who never was beaten in 7 singles matches. Why isn't Tom Kite, around this week? Why isn't he the guy they're asking for advice? Why are they asking Azinger when Azinger won 1/3 of all the matches he played in? 1/3.
All right. I've got a lot of experience in this from dealing with TC on podcasts for years. You just threw like 85 things at me, and I got to pick and choose what I want to react to here, right? Which is, all right, first thing, their actions don't support it. Going to throw a big red flag on that one. It's the event that these guys talk about a ton. All of their experiences like pale in comparison to being on that team and wanting to be on it again. I think it invokes some kind of different competitive spirit in them that they can only channel that 1 week out of the year. And I don't know, you listen to almost anyone talk about their experience. You look at Keegan's, just the way he's talked about not being on these teams. I would say it's like one of the most important things in these guys' careers is being able to compete in these events, especially like the feeling of missing out on it seems to be enormous. The U.S. team is going on a special site visit. I don't know if maybe you do that for 1 or 2 major venues a year. Go do an advanced scout visit. A lot of dudes don't want to play golf courses that aren't near their tournament condition or are going to be in a different condition. They don't want to putt on the greens that, are going to be at a different speed than that tournament week. It's I don't it's not the days of just showing up and rolling the balls out and going to see what happens at the Ryder Cup. It's something they take extremely seriously. There's a ton of statistical analysis that goes into forming the teams, forming the partnerships, all that stuff. I think we do remember the really accomplished Ryder Cup players more than you do the ones the GOATs. Like Tiger and Phil are synonymous with failures in the Ryder Cup. Jim Furyk is synonymous with failures in the Ryder Cup. Colin Montgomery's never lost a singles match in the Ryder Cup. Ian Poulter, we only know this because of what he's done in the Ryder Cup. It's definitely not his major championship record. It leaves some really lasting images. I don't think
so. I think in 30 years, nobody's going to have any idea who Ian Poulter was. I don't think, you guys, Rory and Spieth and those guys, there's no way any of those guys would trade one of their major championships for a win this week or for a win next week. None of them. If you went to Jordan Spieth and said, you can only have one of these two things, either you can win a PGA championship or you can win a Ryder Cup.
That's very different than what we're talking about. That's a totally different thing. This is, you're flailing like TC. I've been here. You're flailing.
That's not the most important event. It means at best it can only be the 5th most important event or 6th most important event. There's just no way when they're that focused on 4th. I mean, I'll concede it's the 5th biggest event of Rory's schedule, but it's not number 1. The one in Augusta, Georgia is number 1. It just is.
Okay, well, if the take is, it's not a major championship, I'm going to agree with you on that one. But it's the best. It's a totally separate event. I don't know where we're going here, TC.
I'll tell you where we're going. We're going to Italy. That's where we're going, which is another thing I hate about this. So they were doing pretty good. I mean, they played links courses. I think Walton Heath was the last kind of.
We're going to find some common ground here. The Venn diagram's going to overlap here. Yes.
Yeah. It's scummy is what it is, what they're doing. I mean, they've turned this into the Super Bowl where they're just auctioning it off to whatever travel company or tourism bureau is willing to pay the most and then passing it along on the backs of the spectators. And, I saw there's tickets still available for the Ryder Cup this year as of an hour ago. So they're asking a bunch of people to fly from, Great Britain or from Spain or from the Netherlands to Italy. And they're asking the Americans to fly to Italy when, why isn't this being held an hour outside of London or in Edinburgh or one of the other 500 courses in Europe that are better than Italy? If you want to grow the game or you want to reward people, what about the Netherlands? There's what about Germany? Germany has 10 times as many golfers as Italy has. They have 7 times as many golf courses. They've got the greatest player in their country's history, starting to exit stage right, Bernard Langer. And, why don't they have one in Germany? And the answer is because somebody in Italy wrote a bigger check than, it's all about money. And that's fine, but I'm not going to get all hyped up on it. And last but not least, and I'll leave it at this as far as my hatred of it. Well, there's a lot of things I still hate. But last but not least is that this is the best time of the year to go outside and play golf. I live in Birmingham, Alabama. This place is a hellhole in July and August. I don't even like to get my mail from the mailbox in July and August. You get to September, you get to October. There's only like 6 or 8 weekends where it's just great. Right? You got your Holderness and Bourne shirt on. It's not. You're not cold. You're not hot. It's just the perfect time to play golf. Go outside and play golf, people, right? Don't sit on your couch and turn on the television when it's finally 75 degrees outside and it's the perfect time of year to play golf yourself. I like golf because I like being around my friends and the exercise and the time spent outside. And there's plenty of opportunities to consume professional golf. And this one just seems like this weird, it was meant to be this fellowship between nations, but we're also going to make as much money as we can and screw the fans. And it's kind of hard to put in the proper context of where it belongs in history. And oh, by the way, here's the new playlist for the songs that are going to be played on the driving range on Tuesday afternoon that you can download from the Ryder Cup site this morning.
You're distracted by the stuff that doesn't matter. You're not distracted by the stuff that doesn't matter. First of all,
strip it all away.
I've never been to Birmingham, Alabama. How do time zones work over there, right? Because they're going to wrap up play by like 1 p.m. for you. You have plenty of time to play golf, all right? So you're talking about once every 4 years, you get 1 weekend of fall golf affected by the Ryder Cup. And if you hate it so much, don't watch it. This ain't that difficult, Wolfie.
Right. So I'll concede that one entirely. I love the viewing schedule this year. I may start following Italian sports just because of the time zones and stuff. I think it's going to be great watching. So USA Network, 1:30 in the morning until noon on Friday. Saturday, 1:30 in the morning until 3 a.m. on USA, and then it switches over to NBC. And then Sunday, it's from 5:30 in the morning until 1 p.m. on NBC. So yeah, nice viewing schedule as long as you don't mind waking up a little early. I do like that part of it. I'll give the viewers a tip too. A great move, signature move, is when it's played in the United States. That is a great week to take a golf trip to the UK because you can get all your golf in the morning, and then you can go to the pubs in the evening, and you can watch the Ryder Cup being played in the United States because of the time zone differences in the pubs in the UK, and kind of overhear all their conversations about their own players and stuff like that. And that's a nice way to do it. So if you're planning if you're starting to plan a golf trip for 2 years from now, picking the Ryder Cup week is a pretty good week to do it.
Again, we're going to have a lot of common ground on the venue selection and money ruling the day on a lot of this stuff, right? I'd love for it to go to links golf courses, but it just, not a lot of them can handle, you know, these amount of crowds with these few balls in play, right? Birkdale can handle crowds for the Open Championship when the golf is spread across the entire golf course, but I don't know about, you know, just four matches going on all at once. Italy, I have some major questions. I think it's great. I think it's a great trip if you like to go to Rome, hang out, go to the Ryder Cup, and, you know, go to some wineries after. That's a bucket list trip. It'd be really fun. Great time of year in Rome. The golf course is an abomination. It's really bad.
I mean, I think that's great.
I would be very upset if it's not. And you know, it's I don't know. I don't really know what
if you can rope one, shape it with the fairway, and get it in this 20-yard wide fairway, you are rewarded with a shot around or over a tree.
Adair Manor, I'm really looking forward to. I think that is a great blend of like huge golf fans in Ireland, awesome big venue, really cool settings for match play holes and things like that. That has a chance to be an all-time European Ryder Cup. I think the hills and the mounds and stuff around Marco Simone for viewing are going to be great, but wow, I have some questions about getting people in and out of that place. And, there are a lot of questions about the Ryder Cup that are answered by like, yeah, it's just about making the most amount of money as possible. But like, man, that's like kind of what's floating the DP World Tour right now, other than the PGA Tour, is this event. They go, you know, red year, black year in a home Ryder Cup. So you kind of can't fault them for squeezing as much out of it as they can because it's keeping their tour alive. But at the same time, there's a price to pay for fans on the back end of that, unfortunately.
Yeah. The other note I'll drop in on course selection, because of the nature of match play and the fact that the scores aren't, you know, the individual hole scores aren't, you know, added up and posted at the end of the day. It's a rare opportunity to play golf courses that aren't 7,700 yards because the potential host courses really don't care. I mean, that's the beauty of the Walker Cup being held at Cypress Point, is they don't need to build a whole bunch. You don't need to stretch Cypress Point to 7,500 yards for the Walker Cup, because nobody's going to know whether Gordon Sargent. They're going to know whether Gordon Sargent won his match or not, but they're not going to know whether he shot 63 or 75. I think we saw that with the President's Cup at Royal Melbourne. I thought that was a real nice part of it. Was, you know, what they shot didn't really matter. It was just the outcome of the individual matches. So you know, I think that's a missing opportunity. So tell me about No Laying Up coverage. What are we going to have on? What's on tap for the big event?
The Pie Man, KVV, and I will be making the trip to Marco Simone, getting fat on cacio e pepe, pizza, wine, you name it. We will be doing live shows. We're going to exit the grounds and get back to our hotel to do live shows, kind of probably not quite nighttime in the U.S., but more afternoon time, so we have a little bit of time to get some sleep before the 4:30 a.m. wake-up calls the next day to make sure we're at the first tee. I'll be doing live shows on Twitter and on YouTube. They'll be brought to you by our friends at High Noon. We'll be doing a preview show on Thursday night once the pairings are out. All kinds of fun stuff in place. I think we're going to get some walkie-talkies so we can talk to each other while we're out on the golf course and back in the media center and whatnot. It's going to be great. I cannot wait. It's a really fun, it's a different energy than any event. The coolest sports experience I've ever had was walking inside the ropes of the 2016 Ryder Cup. There was a fervor in that crowd that there wasn't at Whistling Straits. And you can walk right in between holes, fans right on top of these players screaming their heads off at Rory, sometimes saying some things they should not be saying, but screaming in support of Patrick Reed. The one week a year that people cheered for Patrick Reed, it gave me chills. It was awesome, and I cannot wait for this to happen again. The European ones are a totally different experience, and the Europeans' ability to, as a group of fans, come together, sing, chant, like watching the American fans just yell and scream at the players about how they're going to lose, and then going over and having this experience we're going to have with Europeans is so polar opposite. They have really learned to embrace this event, and I look forward to I'm sure getting heckled plenty while we're on the grounds at Marco Simone.
Don't yell on the golf course, people. Don't yell. This is a civilized
Ryder Cup. Come on.
It's a gentleman's game. Don't yell. Come on. Behave like human beings. This is...
Hey, Wolfie, last note I just saw on the agenda is that it says in here you've never eaten pasta
in your whole
Yeah.
life? I just wanted to fact check that.
Yeah, never tried it. I don't know.
If you've never eaten pasta, would have been like a qualifier for this whole episode.
Exactly.
I think everyone would have viewed all of your takes differently, knowing you've never tried pasta.
Mom says I ate spaghetti like when I was like an infant, like when I was like 2 years old, and I maybe I ate too much of it. It's just the look of it, and especially the sound when people eat it, like that squishy. No, I'm a steak and potatoes guy. West side of Cincinnati, steak, potatoes. If I go to an Italian restaurant, I either get veal or pizza. Like pizza, but I've never tried. If you offered me, and I couldn't do it. It looks like worms. If you offered me $1,000, I don't think I could eat a bowl of
Wolfie,
stuff.
you can't ruin the Ryder Cup for me, and you can't ruin pasta for me. Those are two things that are just off limits here.
How about some money? I can make you some money though. You want to make some money on the Ryder Cup? My fun fact: the Euros have made 5 aces. Only one American has ever made a hole-in-one. So take the American hole-in-one bet. That's one of my fun facts this week. 2 other fun facts. 3 seniors have played in the Ryder Cup. Ray Floyd, Jay Haas, and the third one, Ted Ray. Only 3 guys over 50 years old that have ever played in the Ryder Cup, excuse me. So it is possible. And then last but not least, worst Ryder Cup player of all time, Fuzzy Zeller. Fuzzy was 1-8-1. And those were even in some years where we did pretty well in the Ryder Cup. So Fuzzy won 1 of his 10 Ryder Cup matches. Not so great, Fuzz. Not so great.
Unlucky. I hate that I know who the American ace was, because I just did a deep dive on the 2006 Ryder Cup, and it was Scott Verplank.
Well, Soly, I appreciate you coming in. I hate that we had our first one was contentious. I don't know if you remember, the first time we ever met was at a match at Sweetens Cove. You and I beat the Schuster brothers out of $5. I never saw the $5. Just for I want that known for history's sake. But I think that was the first time we met. The last time
Everything's about money with you, Wolfie. It's all about money. All this commercialization, you're gonna scream about money, and now you're running a Holderness and Bourne video, and you want your $5 from your match here. Just embrace that. Play for the love of the game.
These golf books aren't free. These things are, my wife's got me on a short leash. She's not just doling out cash for these books. I gotta earn my keep around here. So anyway, I hope everybody enjoys it. I don't like it. That doesn't mean you guys shouldn't like it. There's room in this game for plenty of people. I'm probably going to be out playing golf that weekend, but I hope everybody enjoys it. And I know No Laying Up's coverage will be first rate. So, bring on the Ryder Cup. And thanks for coming on Office Hours, Soly.
We appreciate you running the class. We'll be making a donation to a foundation of your choice as well. Thank you, Professor.